All right, The Killing from 1956. I watched this about a week ago, maybe a little longer, and so it's from 1956, kind of older, but it's very prominent because it's one of Stanley Kubrick's earlier movies. This was his third movie, and then after this, he really shot to prominence and became huge. Obviously, everything he did after this was pretty much monumental. So there's not any huge stars in this movie. Name recognizable, anyways. The main character is played by Sterling Hayden, and I mean, even I don't know anything else that he was really in just off the top of my head. I think most of this cast is actually pretty well respected character actors, so there's not any like huge box office draw type names from the era. But all the acting's really good. The plot's pretty simple. So Sterling Hayden plays one of the main character, pretty much named Johnny Clay, and gets out of prison and he wants to do one last job. He's a criminal, career thief, and they want to pull off one last heist. So it's one of those final heist movies before they get out and live the rest of their life, live the good life. And he gets a collection of other people to help him out. Some ex-cons or still criminals, and a couple people are still just straight-laced people. And the place they're going to hit is a racetrack. And so some of those people that aren't really career criminals work at the track. Most prominently is a guy named George Peedy. He is a booker or a teller, one of the guys that takes the bets at the racetrack, and so he's a pretty big part of the story, especially because his wife Sherry kind of gets involved in not a great way for the criminals involved. She learns more of the plot than she should, and that creates trouble. Trouble abounds, but yeah. So that's pretty much the plot. I don't want to get into too much other detail. So it's a heist movie. They plan to ride this horse track of about $2 million, and then you have to watch it to see what happens. It's really good. I think this is kind of a seminal movie for multiple reasons. For the heist type movie, for really independent directors, making it big, kind of showing what they can do. And this is definitely the case for Stanley Kubrick. So after this movie, he was recognized by Kirk Douglas, who approached him to make Paths of Glory, and then he went on to make Spartacus with him as well. And a lot of the movie connections I kind of make with this are very similar to what happened with Kubrick. There's actually a lot of scenes that are reminiscent of Reservoir Dogs, and so again, another heist movie for Quentin Tarantino, and that shot him into the top echelon of directors to look for after his really small independent heist movie. Very similar, and actually, this movie, The Killing, has a very non-linear chronological order. It goes back and forth multiple times, and that's something that you can see in Tarantino's movies as well. It's often been cited as like an influence for him. So there's that connection as well. I guess kind of one of the more obvious ones is Ocean's 11 as a heist movie. Obviously, much larger scale, a lot more complicated, but that's a similar one. But then kind of going back to what I was talking about with other directors making their first films, I got them recognized. I thought of The Following, which is Christopher Nolan's first feature film, and it's super independent, low budget, indie, black and white, and it's a heist movie essentially. Robbery is involved as the main plot point. So he made that, and then became, a top director to look out for the studios and stuff like that. So very similar with lots of these other directors, kind of following in his footsteps a little bit. I guess the other one I thought of was David Lynch. So he did Eraserhead, which he worked on for a long time, and it was so good. Everybody started offering him big deal movies. So yeah, I guess going back to this movie, in general, there's some great. I noticed right away, like the lighting. It's in black and white, so that might turn some people off. But there's great lighting and tracking shots, and I just kind of when you notice things like that, you know it's really well done, and you can see touches of what Kubrick would go on to do with his extremely how much of a perfectionist he was with his camera setup and his lighting and all that for every shot. And the movie's really good. It's a great noir film. It's not as moody as a lot of noir films are really kind of dark and always set in the rain. And it's femme fatale. It's a little different, so still in that style a little bit, but kind of goes in a different direction. It's not as dark and ominous, even though it deals with crime. And even though it's called The Killing, I wouldn't say that. I guess I don't want to give anything away, but there's not a whole lot of killing that makes that a huge plot point. It's mostly about this robbery and the setup and the people involved with that. And yeah, I just couldn't stop thinking that this is probably like such an incredible movie when it came out. This is 1956 when it came out. This was before, this was way before Scorsese and Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola. So this is just thinking of when this probably came out, what kind of a splash it probably would have made was pretty significant, I would think. And I just kept thinking again about Reservoir Dogs. Kind of had probably that same feeling. So the way Reservoir Dogs, the effect that had when it came out in the early 90s, is what I imagine this kind of had in the mid 50s. So it's a great movie. I mean, a lot of people put it up there as a masterpiece, and it's definitely, compared to what Kubrick would go on to do, it's, not nearly up there. But of course, this is a very small budget movie and beginning of his career. Still a really, really, really good crime movie, heist movie. And you can see how it affected so many other directors and movies since. That they're pretty clear what he started there. So I really liked it. I'm giving it a 3.5 out of 5. So it's not super high on the list. It's probably not one that I would, rewatch many times. But again, it's from the mid 50s, and if I'm going to be watching a Kubrick film, I'll probably just rewatch, The Shining and Clockwork Orange, which I rewatch all the time because they're so good. But yeah, definitely a must see if you, like the crime films and heist films, those genres, or obviously if you just want to check out all of Kubrick's filmography and stuff like that. Definitely worth a watch. So I really liked it, and I think that'll be it for now. All right, bye.